Good afternoon, everybody. We are here with Erez Laufer and Michel Gherman. We are going to wait a little bit so everybody can come inside, so we can start the webinar Quando o cinema encontra História. So we wait like a little bit, like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, so we can start.
Do I see the participant? No.
Hmm?
Do I see the participant? No, I don't think so.
No.
No.
So I think we can start, no?
Yeah.
So good afternoon, everybody. I'm really happy to be here, ending this amazing week of EB, of the 25 years of death of Itzhak Rabin. We are here today with Erez Laufer and Michel Gherman, so I'm going to present both of you. Thank you very much for being here. So Erez has been working in the documentary world in the last 30 years. He has worked on numerous projects, including on the Oscar-nominated The War Room for Best Documentary. He co-edited Laura Portra's Oscar-nominated My Country, My Country. His latest film, Rabin in His Own Words, won the award for Best Documentary at IFA International Film Festival. His film, Mike Brand, Les Mois Temés, was awarded in the 2002 Israeli Academy Award for Best Documentary and had its international premiere at the Directors Fortnight Cannes Festival 2003. Thank you for being here again, Erez. And Michel Gherman is co-coordinator of the Interdisciplinary Center for Jewish Studies at UFRJ, researcher at Ben Gurion University and academic director of Brasil-Israel Institute. My name is Ana Clara. I'm going to be mediating this table. So we are going to start with Erez. He was the director of Rabin in His Own Word that was disponible in our mostra de cinema during the week of Rabin that we did. So Erez, if you want to start talking a little bit about the process of doing the movie, what was the choices that you need to take to tell this history, and a little bit of the process, you can start.
Thank you, and thank you for everybody joining us and watching the film. 25 years ago, I was in the peace demonstration in Rabin Square, which was called a different name back then. And it was a very moving night. And I remember, of course, the sounds of the helicopter after he was shot. And it's something you remember. And I had this, I grew up in Kaduri, where Rabin went to the high school, as you saw in the film. And my father was working as an agriculture teacher there. And so one of my first memories of childhood, when he came in 68, 67, before the war, with the helicopter to Kaduri to some ceremony. And it was the kind of one of the first memories as a kid, seeing the chief of staff getting out of the helicopter and and talking to the kids. So that's the kind of small personal touch to Rabin, but of course, politically, it was time of hope. And 5 years ago, when it was the 20 years anniversary, I wanted to do something, but you know, as a filmmaker, there are many subjects that you care about it, but if you don't find a way you want to express this, and if you don't feel like you can make a good film, you actually don't do it, because there are many subjects you care and you want to make a film about it. And I had this notion that I want to give only to Rabin to speak, because I had the feeling that there are so many people speaking, and in a way they killed him. So now he has the rights to tell his story. Of course, I'm telling his story, but in a way that to give his words a voice. And people criticize, when I had this idea, so people challenge me and say, oh, you will never be able to make it because Rabin speaks so slowly. And how can you maintain 100 minutes of his slow voice? People will get bored. So I knew that I have to prove that I can take small bits from different places and to have, it's like an orchestra, that you have different notes and you make it like musically that it's interesting. And I also limit myself that I will not, because he wrote an autobiography called Pinkas Shirut until that it covered until I think 1980, and I limit myself that I will not use written materials by Rabin only by 5 or 6 times, because if I will not limit myself, I can find many other things that he wrote and make it even more in depth or something like that, because you can find more written materials than spoken material. But I limit myself because I really wanted to have that sense that he tells the story. And of course, I was lucky to find radio interviews of Rabin that talking about his own childhood. So the film constructed in a way that until 1960s, he tells his story from a later interview. But from the 60s, with all the materials is available on film and radio, I tried that he will tell his story in the real time when it happened. So it was a long process to figure out how you can tell the story. And of course, the questions that it's very important that people ask is what also new we got in this process about Rabin. So I think in terms of the media, there are 3 things that the only thing that's very new. It's one is the way he said about the settlers. He was not shy. He said bluntly that they are like a cancer that eats the Israeli society. It's a very strong statement. He thinks that if they are not obey the law, he said that you can argue about the things, but if they are not going to obey the law, it's going to destroy the Israeli society. I think the second thing is we found also it's off the record recording, off the record that in already 73 said that if the Egyptian will go and offer a peace, he will willing to go to a 67 day border to withdraw from Sinai, which of course happened later on. And the third thing that in 76 that he already used the word, if we're not going to find solution with the Palestinians, we cannot live in apartheid. And using the word apartheid in 76 is very radical, because you have to remember 76 we still had apartheid in South Africa, and it's not the terms Prime Minister used, but of course it was off the record. You can ask if it's okay to use off the record what he considered to be off the record recording back then, and I'm using it, although he's saying don't publish it, I think it's okay, because I don't think I betray his legacy or what he meant. I don't know. That's the way I felt. I felt it's okay to use those statements. I think what the film shows that he always been thinking about the political situation of Israel and want to find a solution. And a lot of time, when the film process happened in '92, there was this tendency to say that Rabin is completely a security right wing, and he only followed Peres' path. He was not really wanted the peace with the Palestinians, etc., etc. But if you follow the way he was thinking, since 1968, when he was an ambassador, Israeli ambassador in America, he always looked for the solutions that we have to find solution for peace. So in a way, the film show is the progress of the way he was thinking. And so I think that's a little bit more in depth. And I think when you make a film with 100 minutes long, you can treat the issues in more depth than you can do when you do a programs. And I think the narrative of the film represent the, let's say, the left Zionist, if you can say that, meaning those Labor Party that they were fighting for the independence of the country in '48. But then later on, they are brave enough to also to deal with the unpleasant thing. And I don't know if you remember in 1948, there is a very moving place that you can see the order of Rabin signed by him to kick out the Arabs in one of the cities inside Israel, Lod. And he talks about it, how was it one of the hardest day of the war, when he saw the kids and the women that they have to kick them away. So I think it's a very complex, but of course, now even 5 years later, after making the film, I think the film represents this kind of Israeli view. Maybe like politically, it kind of represents it's very hard now when we say right and left, because Rabin was never left, but today it's considered to be left. But it represents this kind of, as I say, Zionist leftist approach to the Israeli society. I think maybe I will open up for Michel and then to the audience, because this format, the webinar, you don't see the people you're talking to, so you don't know what is the reaction and what to talk about it. So let's open up for Michel and then questions, then it will be a little bit easier.
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so I react.
Yeah.
Ana? So thank you very much, Erez. Thank you very much, Ana. I wanted to begin by saying that I am a historian, Erez. So I think we have some common ground when we see historical process. One of this common ground with someone like you that is a filmmaker, but a documentary filmmaker, is that we don't work with fiction, but we know that the past is a kind of a building from the present. We look at the past like someone who wants to light, to make clear what is happening there, and we look for things that we want to show to the people. We know, if we are good historians or good filmmakers, that we cannot bring the truth from the past, because the truth is not in the past. The truth is what we want to show to the people, or I mean, the truth doesn't exist. And we want to make clear some things there, but our problems is from the present. Our problems are in the present, are here and now. And it's from here and now that we can understand the past. No? So it's our common ground. I mean,
Yeah,
we look for the same things. And you drove me to understand some things that I was thinking about then, but it was not clear for me. You were in the demonstration in Kikar Rabin that was named Kikar Malachim in Tel Aviv. I wasn't there. I was in the other side. I grew up in the other side. Not exactly, but I went in many, I went to many, I was in many demonstrations of the right-wing side. I was in Kikar Zion when the leader of the opposition saw the people screaming, Mavet LeRabin, death to
you got stuck.
Rabin. I was there when the people was understanding that to kill Rabin, it's a kind of solution for the problem. I was in the yeshiva, very famous yeshiva, in 1990 when the rabbi was there explaining why it's not legal for the Talmud to cannot kill the prime minister. But if someone has to explain in a school that's not good to kill someone, it's the sign of that some people are willing to kill someone. I came from there. So always when the people try to explain what happened in Rabin murder, I try to explain that it was not an accident. It was not something that happened. It was a program. It was a project. People understood that something would happen. People knew in my field, in my camp, that something in this, I don't know if to kill, but something very violent, very strong, very, very clear should happen. I don't know if it was Rabin, I don't know if it was Perez, but something very strong should happen in order to stop such process. It was for me clear that the moderate part of the religious Zionism could not understand then that there was a very strong and a very radical part there that was planning something. For me, it's important to say that hate speeches, we're talking about the president, hate very strong and happen. The people don't understand that in a demonstration you can say Mavet LeRabin, death to Rabin, or Mavet LeRavim, death to the Arabs, or Mavet to I don't know who, Mavet to Smolanim, death to left-wing people. They cannot understand exactly that it has to stay in the demonstration. After the demonstration, people go with these things to the houses, to the yeshivot, to the schools, and try to understand how to make such screamings something that makes sense for them. So to say that we could not understand that something in this sense would happen in Israel, I can understand that you in the left wing could not understand that the point could reach such point. But for us, then in the right wing, in the religious side of the right wing, it was clear that something like this could happen. It's just the first point I wanted to share with you. But your film drove me to understand another thing. Rabin, when you said that Rabin speaks very slowly, very one word in 5 minutes, but it's not only this. Rabin is the very first prime minister in Israel that speaks Israeli Hebrew. If you listen to Peres, if you listen to Begin, if you listen to Ben Gurion, they speak non-Israeli Hebrew. They have, the articles, they don't use very well. And the preposition, they don't use it very well. When they speak in Hebrew, they speak a kind of European Hebrew. You can understand that they came from there. They came from the diaspora. Rabin didn't come from the diaspora. Rabin came from Kaduri, from your home. And if you understand that the people who Ben Gurion knew in his life, the parents, the neighborhoods, the friends, what happened to them? The people that Begin knew in the childhood, in the city, in the town, what happened to them? To be in the very first half of the century and Jew from Europe is not an easy experience. It's a very strong experience. Rabin didn't have it. Rabin came from Israel, from the Erez Israel. It's very strong. He could be a kind of process between the diaspora and Israel. He could be a kind of, a connection between the suffering Jew and the strong Jew. Very strong Jew. Even too strong to understand that the suffering of the Palestinian should be a problem of the strong Jew, of the strong Israeli, and not only the problem of the Palestinians. When you brought the question of Lud, the question of Lida, the problem in the Pinkas of the autobiography of Rabin, when he told how difficult for him it was to see children crying, he understood very deeply what is the suffering of the Palestinians. That is a problem of Israeli people. There's a problem of the strong Israeli. There's a problem for someone who understands that he has to take the problems that he brought to the Palestinians and to solve them. It is exactly the point of shooting and crying. I have to shoot, but I must cry. It's part of my identity. After Rabin, after the process, after someone who brought to the kind of Israeliness for the Israeli politics and broke with the kind of the memory of the diaspora, you can imagine what would happen. Someone who said, I understand what is to be part of this country, not because of the diaspora, because of this country, because of this land. It's very strong. And when you brought these words of Rabin, such very good Hebrew, such very strong Hebrew, and in some points you brought Peres and you brought Begin and Ben Gurion, and when I saw the European Hebrew with such, articles bad partly there, I understood that you are bringing someone who could make this connection between the end of the diaspora and the just country. Because of that, it's very easy for him to talk about apartheid, because he understood that this generation of the new Sabra should solve this problem, should avoid of transforming Israel into apartheid country. So he had to do that. Your film brought it very clearly for me. And when this program happened, someone killed him, it's not only the question of the peace process. It's not only the question of Oslo. It's not only the question of making dialogues with Arafat. It's not easy for Rabin to make a dialogue with Arafat or to sit with Arafat and to solve with him. It's very strong. It's very difficult for him. But it's not only that. To kill someone like Rabin is to kill a very important connection with the history of Zionism, is to avoid a process where the Europe is not anymore the point, and Israel became the point. And when these people, Mitnachalim, the settlers, decided to make these things of calling him traitor, calling him Nazi, and to kill him, they decided to transform the history of the Zionism in something else, to make it another point, to say, we're not going to break up with the diaspora, and to transform Israel into a normal country, a country where we have to take responsibility about the things that are happening here. We are going to re-diasporizate Israel, to take us back to Europe, to make clear that the Palestinians cannot exist, because we have to see and to look only at the people who are here, only to the people who are strong. So your film, I don't know if you understood that when you were shooting it, but your film drove me to understand that to cut the history of Rabin was something like to make a very strong break with the history of the Zionism.
Yeah, I'm definitely. No, I was aware of that, of course. Of course, I was aware of that. And I was wondering, when I said that people challenged me when I wanted to make the film in the beginning, so they also asked me, how can you present a subject only from one side? And probably that's where we can be different, the historian and the documentary filmmaker, because I can't believe that you can make a work on Rabin without bringing the other people. And I, as a documentary filmmaker, I knew that it's my right to take this angle and to look in that frame what I want to say. And I believe even though I'm saying I'm a left, and of course I supported Rabin, I believe that I presented the historical fact in the right way and not in manipulative way, because I do have responsibility for that. But still, I think I have the freedom to say, okay, he cannot speak now, so I will help him to speak now because he was killed. Just in this,
Yes.
just of the objectivity issue.
I don't know if it's important. I mean, every work is not objective. It's okay to make work about the things you want to tell. I mean, to be non-objective is part of your work. You are okay with that. I only wanted to ask you, you made the film based on the speech of one man. You transformed him into a hero. It could be a very bad film. It could be a very bad film, a bad film, if such men until the end of the film kept the question of being the hero. You begin the film with him saying it's not gonna finish well. It's gonna be a sad end. You transformed this man from the hero into the victim already in the beginning. So you are not making propaganda. You're making a very good film.
Yeah, but also remember that in a funny way, as a filmmaker, even though it's a real true life of a person, I still think about exposition, first act, second act, conflict and resolution and emotional, because that's how you make film. So
So imagine if you are making a film about Bibi Netanyahu. Okay, you could do that. I think you could begin with Bibi. Bibi was not a very strong man in the beginning of his career. You know, he was a diplomat in the United States of America, and in the end,
he was selling furniture before.
Huh?
You were selling furniture before.
Yeah, yeah. In the name of the shop, yeah, selling furniture, and afterward he made a peace with Emirates. You know, it will be a propaganda film. It will be, you know, making Anna. I'm talking that for you. We talked about that. You say that you're making a aerification of someone, and it would not be a good film. But you say Rabin represents one kind of Zionism that's very important for these people, that this kind of Zionism will be defeated. And to kill Rabin is not only to kill Rabin, it's to defeat such kind of Zionism. Because of that, it's not a film about a hero. It's a film about the opposite of a hero.
Yeah. You know, I don't know what the, it's just last point, unless you want to open it to the public. For me, it was amazing, and I think that was a surprise for many people that watched the film. How similar the situation was in his first time he was a government in the 70s, all the demonstration against him, and all that it was almost a rehearsal for the second time. His relationships with the settler were very complicated already, and also that was another finding that people didn't know, that as soon as he got to be a prime minister, 1 year before Oslo, we have all the demonstration against him because of the many terror attacks. And so they already called him a traitor actually before so it is a very complex relationship.
Because it was not a peace process, it was another thing. It was another kind of Zionism that could be the new Zionism that we could now to challenge such kind of, you know, right-wing Zionism that calls himself as the real Zionism. And Rabin was the other real Zionism.
Yeah, so, that's why I support the way you analyze it, because that showed that this friction between the two kind of Israelis in a way.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And another point, Anna, just before opening the floor, Rabin was not only the man of Oslo Agreement. He was also the man who gave rights for the people from peripheral cities in Israel. He was also the man who gave rights to the Israeli Arabs in Israel. He talked about that by the very first time. He was the man who talked for the very first time about LGBT. And then it was the gay rights movement. So the kind of Oslo was one point, but they killed a possibility of thinking Israel in a very modern, in a very open, in a very possible way. Rabin represented everything like this. And your film drove me to think about Oslo as a justification for the act. But such people wanted to look for such kind of justification from the very beginning of Rabin's career. Yeah, the autobiography of Rabin is from he wrote that he published that in 82. So he was talking about a leader and all these things in 1982. Yeah. So before everything. Yeah. So, Kol HaKavod, it was a very, very good film, a really strong, and drove me to think about the figure of Rabin in a very different way than before.
Thank you. Laura?
Thank you very much, Michel and Erez. We open the question for the public. If someone wants to make a question, I can read. But I can also do one for Erez, as people doesn't have a question until now. Erez, how was for you like the process of editing the movie? Because you had like a lot of archive image that you said, you talk a little bit how you found it. And for you, like how do you choose the one that you are going to put inside the movie? How you organize this huge archive image that I think you had in the end of the movie?
First of all, I'm the editor myself. I edit the film myself. This is I'm also an editor for other people's film. I think, in a funny way, it always looks that it's a lot, but in a funny way, I choose like 20 to 25 stories when I start making the film, and I was right in 95%. So it's not like I choose 50 stories and then I had to reduce them to 20 scenes. Also, I was limited only if I have spoken words. So it's also limit the way I decided. For example, I had a very good story about, I was considering one point to put the Altelena story because Rabin was in 48 when they shot, Rabin was there. And I cut, but this, in a way, it didn't make it in. Also because of a technical reason, the sound was so bad that I couldn't really make the scenes works. And then in the end, I decide not so much because of political reason. The fact, I got help from Rabin Center because the way it works, the family gave all the materials to Rabin Center, so I didn't have to deal with the family directly. So all the Super 8 and the personal and the letters and all stuff that were in there. So I work like with any other archive. In a funny way, they gave us the access to look for 700 audio cassette tape, which over there we found all the off-the-record recording because those tapes were recorded before the interview with the journalist. I think if Rabin Center would know, he would never give it to us, maybe. I don't know. I have a feeling that maybe they will not give it to us such a free access, but I think no one went. That was a long process to go over all the audio tape, and you know there was some great finding of footage from South Africa when he was traveling there for fundraising money. But we used the shots in a different way because it was just a good close-up of him smiling. I mean, that's the way you do in film. You that's a legal cheat. You know, you find a meeting and is beautiful close-up of him that he's smiling, and it was for South Africa, and I edited in the White House when he was dancing with Betty Ford. So this kind of cheat as a documentary filmmaker I can do because I didn't lie. I mean, would you agree with me that I can cheat like that in the editing?
Yes, I agree. Wait, we have some questions here.
Oh, I see in the Q&A.
Yes, I will translate for you the first one.
Okay.
So how the movie was received by the Israeli public, there was a difference between the reception in Israel and outside Israel?
When we got out with the film, it was for the 25th, for the 20th anniversary for his assassination. And because we were, in a way, there were other projects, but we were the first one and we won the Haifa Festival, the film festival, so we got a lot of exposure. It was well received, but because I think even the right people from the other side of the political map thought it was fair, that it was fairly done. I was in a few screenings from kind of organization to try to bridge between the political fraction. and even we show the film in those events. Still, the film was broadcast in Yes Doco, which is a documentary channel. So it's not that it was broadcast in the commercial television. So I think the exposure was limited in a way. But we had a lot of screening for high school kids and Q&A, around the country. So I think it was very well received. And out of Israel, it did well especially in the Jewish market, in the Jewish festival in America. I don't think I find most of the Jewish festival in the world are presenting the progressive side, so they like the film. Anyway, no one refused to take the film because it's too lefty or something like that.
Okay, we have another one here. Rabin is considered a pragmatic man. We have the possibility. Pragmatic man. We have the possibility to have a new Rabin nowadays in Israel.
Huh. This is a very difficult question because I think time has changed in the way we perceive leaders. Today, I think it's hard to see. I mean, I think it's hard to see because Rabin came with his background and was part of building Israel. And when he made the decision to make, I don't know, it's difficult questions. I think it's possible to find a leader that will say that he wants to have peace. But I think it will be difficult to find a leader that can get the support of the majority of the Israeli people. I think that's my opinion in a way.
Michel, do you want to also answer the question? Or maybe I think he's blocked.
Maybe he doesn't hear you, Michel.
Yeah. I think I'm going to do another question for you, because it's about the movie, and if Michel come back, he can answer also this one. Okay. The Arabic saw your movie. How did they receive? And in which way exactly Rabin it's seen by the Arabics, and does this vision is different from the Israeli vision?
I think that's a very important. That's a very nice question, and I would say that the Arabic, or at least I can say the Israeli Arabic, which I know and think, and also maybe a very left wing also. See Rabin not just a symbol for the peace, and also see Rabin as a symbol of a military man that conquered the 7 war, and also he was famous. One of his statements in 1987 in the Intifada against the Arab, that they should break their ankles and hands, which there's a big argument if he said that or not, but this is the common knowledge that he is very, so he considered to be a very hardliner. So they were not so much like, he was not a martyr for them. And I think when they saw the film, they saw that there was a big process for him, that he was more for peace than they thought he was. Because there was a way to present him in 92 that he refused to shake hand to Arafat, and that he was disgusted by him, and many other things that they made the Arabs also against Rabin, against his militarism. So I think the film was very well received by them. It almost expand their view in a way.
Really nice. There is another one here. Can you speak a little bit of the? Can you speak a little bit of how the cinema has a role in the construction of a narrative of the historic process? 25 years after the murder, Rabin became a symbol that like go for his own biography, like that go for like. Do you understood?
Go beyond. Go beyond.
I mean, I think it's more general question because we have to remember my film is only one of this creating of narrative, and mine is more historical, biographical. But there was in the same year there was a Mos Gitai film about the assassination and the trial. Now there is a new film, fiction film that last year was go out. So I think the cinema is having a very strong goal of creating the narrative. But I think my film is different because it didn't take the decision to use to deal only with the last part of the life, because most of the work that was done on Rabin dealing with the fraction in the Israeli society and what leads to his assassination with all the different theory. And I took a little bit different approach of really like a straight biography in a way. In a way, trying to understand the person and where he's coming from and stuff. I'm sure it influenced the narrative in a way.
Michel, do you also want to answer the other question or this one also?
Yeah. First of all, the first question about the legacy of Rabin, I am not sure we can have it clearly. I agree with Erez. The party of Rabin, the Labor Party, almost doesn't exist anymore in Israel, or if it exists, is very weak party in our parliament today, in the Knesset. And we could not see since then someone who could bring together a very strong left-wing perspective of society, a very strong military perspective of Zionism. I mean, Rabin was a man of the army. It was a man that fought militarily. I mean, he was connected to the army, very strongly connected to the army. And the third one, a man who was connected not to the peace, because I don't think Rabin was connected to the peace camp. I think he was connected to the need of solving the Palestinian question. That's for him an Israeli question. I mean, to solve the Palestinian question is connected for him with the solution of the Zionism, of the Israeli question. I don't think we have today someone who is connected to these 3 points. And because of that, I see how tragic it was to lose Rabin in the middle of the process and of the 3 processes, not only in the middle of the peace process. And you know, and I think in the connected to that when the narrative of the peace process was the most important narrative of Rabin's narrative. It was the strongest one in the middle of the possibility of Rabin's narrative. And it's a problem because it's not the complete Rabin. It's, it's a kind of making from him just one piece of what he was. And I think, Erez, I don't know if you agree with me, that's an attempt of making Rabin smaller than he was. It's making Rabin more specific than he was. And I think that your film contributes for another kind of narrative, making Rabin as a matter of fact, what Rabin was from the social perspective, from the political perspective, and from the peace perspective. And I think that today, the narrative about Rabin, it's more the narrative about the peace process. It's more about, you know, giving or not giving territories for peace. And it's not Rabin. And I think that your contribution is to make it more complex.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's what I said, that most of the other film will really emphasize in the last parts of his life. You know, Amos Gitai and the other fiction film and all the other works that we know.
Yeah.
We have more 2 questions here. I'm going to read. Thank you, Erez and Michel, for this interesting conversation. I would like to know if both of you think Rabin's thoughts can build a bridge between left and right, not extreme right. In which way?
Can you start? Do
you want me to? I would like to know if both of you think Rabin's thoughts can build a bridge between left and right, not extreme.
Okay.
Yes.
Maybe. I mean, the problem is the definition what is extremely right and what is right are all got confused, because in the past, Rabin is not considered left. He considered to be a center right, even in the Israeli map in the past. And now maybe people consider him left. But I think Rabin could have been a bridge because he presents in the center in a way. I think so, but probably Michel has a better answer than I.
I don't know if it's a better answer. I think that today is a very good day to answer such question, because of what happened yesterday in the world. I'm talking about Trump. I saw Rabin experience as a very important experience in connecting, and you are very right about Israeli political map. I mean, to say that Rabin was a far left supporter, it's a joke, because he's not connected to that at all. He was a very strong military chief and connected to the Zionism and connected to the security and everything like this. And I think that Israel, and you know what there is, I think that the reaction of Rabin during the murder in Me'arat HaMachpelah, during the murder of Baruch Goldstein, that was a very tragic terrorist act where a Jew, a religious, a doctor entered in a place of praying, of Islamic praying, and killed more than 40 people, if I remember well. And Rabin said, it's not left or right, it's something else. We have to understand what happened here. And he tried to make connections with the right side of the political map. And then could not understand, decided to make connections with the far right positions. I think that Rabin is a very important symbol for moderate left, right. I think that moderate left and moderate right have to build a wall against the far right and the far left. And now it's very important, more important than ever, to understand that it is also a very important legacy of Rabin. Rabin is saying, forget, Baruch Goldstein is not right. Baruch Goldstein is a non-human man who killed innocent people. Don't try to make it connected to right or left. It is non-human. And I think that the bridge and the legacy of Rabin should be this legacy, the legacy of a moderate right, a moderate left, who can sit together and go beyond inside some process that are important for there, for here, and for there. And I don't know. I'm thinking about Rabin today, and I say how important it should be if we could us to make such legacy, and not the legacy of the peace process. And don't understand me bad. I am very, very. I think it's very important to advance with the peace process with Palestinian people. Very important. But it's not the point. The point is to make it sure and to make it clear why it is important. You have to sit and to explain. And to sit and to explain, we have to ignore the far, the extremists, and you have to understand that the center and the moderate people can listen, can hear. And I think it should be the very important legacy of Rabin in Israeli society and in the world. And if I may say that,
the bad connection.
Michel, can you repeat the last sentence because the internet cut, please?
I said that the legacy of Rabin, for example, you had people from Shas, from religious parties that supported Rabin. You had people from the center right that supported Rabin. But in a very specific point of the story there, the far right and the right decided to be together. And I think that Rabin should be, the legacy of Rabin should be that the moderate people can sit together and to define together how to go forward, how to think forward, how to feed the future. And it's important in Israeli society, I think very important in Israeli society to make the people that can sit together, we are saying not to leave the table, to disagree, to listen to people, to things that are not pleasure to be listened, but to stay in the table, because it's important that people that don't agree can talk, can disagree, and can reach some elements that can be possible for both sides. I think that it should be very important that it will be the legacy of Rabin. In Israel, very important, but also in the world. In the United States of America, yesterday, I think it's very important to understand that this is the point, and also in Brazil. I think if we could think about the legacy of Rabin in Brazil, it would not be the peace process. We don't have peace process. The possibility of making people sit together and to leave behind the far right and the far left.
Totally agree.
Thank you, Michel. Do we have time for our last question? Yes, there is one here. How did you compose the film team? Everybody was part from the left Zionist pro-Rabin. There was people from the right, the religious right in the team of the movie. There was Arab. In which way it's possible to include a critical look in the Rabin history inside the movie?
The team is mostly me, because I was the editor, the director, and most of the archive, and I stuff, and the producer actually came from a very from a right wing family. I don't think they were Rabin voters, but they were liberal pro-peace. So there was no any argument like that, and also the director is the one that leads the direction. So it's a very one-man show in terms of the creativity. So it's not that I had to deal with those kind of questions. I'm working, if I have time, so I'm working with on a new film as an editor, and I was looking, and it is the history of Hebron, where the Kiryat Arba, when the massacre was, and I interviewed some girl for the job, and she didn't feel comfortable to work on film because of the political reason. So I say, okay, I respected that actually. So, but I wanted to work, even though our political view was different. It's a new film, but that was interesting for me because usually the people that works in the film industry are more tense to the peace process, etc.
It's true. We have one more question.
I think the time is.
Yes. So, Michel.
And I just wanted to present idea for Erez. Such I already saw it in many books and in many films, but you presented a very specific and a very good way. It was the meeting of Rabin with Ben-Gurion. Rabin maybe was the most Ben-Gurionist leader of the Israeli politics, and when he went to meet Ben-Gurion, he went out from there completely destroyed. So I was thinking about what happened there exactly, because we don't know exactly, but to imagine it, to make a kind of, imagination exercise of what happened there, it would be very, very interesting and very interesting. Yeah. Do you think?
Thank you very much. We are getting to the end. Thank you, Erez. Thank you, Michel, for being here with us and sharing the ideas and the conversations. And that's it. Thank you very much, and good night.
Thank you so much to you, Anna, and thank you so much to Michel for your good.
Very, very, very good. Enjoyed very much the film.
Yes, true.
Bye. Good
night.